Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. I have lately been reading The Literary Mind and the Carving of Dragons, a seminal work of Chinese literary criticism. Now, this is, while I am reading China's Cosmopolitan Empire by Mark Edward Lewis, he has become my go-to author when it comes to Chinese antiquity. I recently finished his book on the Qin and the Han dynasties, the early Chinese empires, and China between empires, the northern and southern dynasties. A period of unrest in China after the consolidation effected by the Qin and really perfected by the Han. Things fell apart, let's say, and it was during this period of unrest that The Literary Mind and the Carving of Dragons was written. I tried to read this 8 years ago, and I got I got through chapter 23, and I had it with me in San Francisco. The election results came through. Donald Trump had won the presidency, and I set the book aside and never got back to it. So I've decided, given that we have Trump again poised to ascend the presidency, that it was a mistake the first time around to let that distract me from my own personal motives. I am sure I just got so involved in domestic politics and forgot about literary matters for the while. Now I believe it's important that we not let whatever disasters we can expect, whatever injustices we can expect, we should not let that distract us from our own goals and objectives in our personal lives. To some degree, of course, that will not be possible. Previously, 8 years ago, Donald Trump particularly, but his ilk, to conceal their incompetence in handling the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, incited violence against Asians. And it remains yet to see whether he will and they will opt to ramp up such attacks again with their invective. Under the term of Biden, things have slowed down a little bit. So in that case, if you happen to be an Asian man or woman and you get your throat slashed from side to side or whatever, like was happening when Trump was inciting that sort of thing, then of course your own personal goals have to get set aside. And similarly, if you are a gay person or a trans person or anybody who you suspect might be getting targeted by these hordes, it is reasonable to put your personal goals aside or to temper them somewhat or alter them for the sake of personal safety. We cannot foresee how things will go, but that was not what I wanted to talk about. So I find reading this now that I am not lost at sea to the extent that I was the first time, and that is because of reading these books by Lewis. And so I just want, as an aside, to recommend, if you are a person who has not studied much history and are interested in finding out a little bit more about China, that particularly these three books are a really magnificent starting place, read in sequence. And given that China is only becoming more and more a presence on the world stage, the world political stage, as the U.S. Loses credibility and recedes, so recedes economically and also morally, to be sure. If you want to get to know this major player in world politics, this is a really good place to get a handle on it. China has its own highly developed literary tradition, which is only just beginning to get translated into English. You have early pioneers that brought works out. So I'm looking here at Chinese rhyme prose that was translated with an introduction by Burton Watson. He was one of the earliest pioneers in the field. So this is a little anthology. I don't exactly know what Chinese rhyme prose is. It was an early literary form in China. And I show this because I want to read a little bit from The Literary Mind and the Carving of Dragons. This is a bit of an unwieldy title. I have begun to just think of it as Literary Mind Carves Dragons. In Chinese, it's just 4 words and 4 syllables. And I think it is more easily understood as a metaphor for literary creation in that way. Fortunately, with my background in Chinese, which is much less than I would like it to be, but I at least have enough awareness to the nuance of the words. So just to take the most obvious example, mind, what is translated as mind, would actually be written out as heart, and the concept is different. I did not go far enough into my studies of the Chinese language to really be able to consider myself bilingual in any sense of the term, except insofar as the most basic, where is the bathroom kind of thing. But at least I feel grateful that I have some sense of the gaps or interstices between the languages, between the words that are written and the words that they are attempting to translate. Now this, so far I've been reading the introduction, which I believe is written by the translator, but he is not given credit anywhere. And I would like to share from that introduction, and it begins with some mention of that literary form, which I just mentioned, the Fu. My pronunciation of Chinese words or terms will not be correct. I, in most cases, don't know what the pronunciation is, and in those few cases where I do, I still probably won't get it correct anyhow. In the Qin dynasty, the most important work on criticism and rhetoric is Lu Qi's Wen Fu. Let me think about this. I guess I will just, he gives the dates for Lu Qi. I guess I should just give you that as well. So pardon me for stumbling. And he is going to quote quite a bit from this this work by Lu Qi, and he mentions the translator. So what you hear and what covers 2 pages in this introduction is a combination of Vincent Yu Chengshi's introduction and interspersed with the translated Lu Qi, translated by another translator, which he speaks highly of and which I would like to find, but I bet it's expensive. So, in the Qin dynasty, the most important work on criticism and rhetoric is Lu Qi's 261 to 303, Wen Fu, Essay on Literature in the Form of a Fu. Scintillating with poetic beauty and critical insight, the Wen Fu is a landmark in the history of Chinese literary criticism, comparable to Pope's Essay on Criticism in the West. A poet of great talent himself, Lu Qi revealed on the basis of his own creative experience the subtle and mysterious nature of aesthetic experience and the creative process with a clarity and beauty of expression that are seldom excelled. Convinced that the Wen Fu must be read to be appreciated, I shall quote a few passages from the remarkable translation by Chen Shixiang to show the poet's penetrating insight into the state of creativity. In regard to creative impulse, he says, "In the beginning, all external vision and sound are suspended. Perpetual thought itself gropes in time and space. Then the spirit at full gallop reaches the 8 limits of the cosmos, and the mind, self-buoyant, will ever soar to new unsurmountable heights. When the search succeeds, feeling at first but a glimmer, will gradually gather into full luminosity, whence all objects thus lit up glow as if each the other's light reflects." On the arduous process of preparation, when words, expressions, images, and metaphors are wrung out of the subconsciousness, he says, "Hence, arduously sought expressions, hitherto evasive, hidden, will be like stray fishes out of the ocean bottom to emerge on the angler's hook, and quick-winged metaphors, fleeting, far-fetched feathered tribes, while sky-faring are brought down from the curl clouds by the fowler's bow." On composition, he says, "A composition comes into being as the incarnation of many living gestures. It is like the act of Tao, the embodiment of endless change. To attain meaning, it depends on a grasp of the subtle, while such words are employed as best serve beauty's sake." One of the most penetrating passages in the Fu is the one on inspiration. Such moments when mind and matter hold perfect communion, and wide vistas open to regions hitherto entirely barred, will come with irresistible force and go, their departure none can hinder. Hiding, they vanish like a flash of light. Manifest, they are like sounds arising in mid-air. So acute is the mind in such instance of divine comprehension. What chaos is there that it cannot marshal in miraculous order? While winged thoughts, like quick breezes, soar from depths of the heart, eloquent words, like a gushing spring, flow between lips and teeth. No flower or plant or animal is too prodigal of splendor, to recreate under the writer's pen. Hence, the most wondrous spectacle that ever whelmed the eye, and notes of the loftiest music that rejoiced the ear. But of all the lines, I must choose the following as a superb expression of the mysterious source of an artistic impulse. For it is being created by tasking the great void, and 'tis sound wrung out of profound silence. So early on, after the initial beginnings of poetry writing and literary composition, later on, people began to question what exactly is poetry and what are the well springs of poetry, poetic composition. I have a whole video, which I will link, talking about my relationship with the muse. And I found that little quoted excerpt, which antedates this book itself, to be very familiar to me. The process of literary inspiration is one that teachers of writing, workshoppers, often try to dismiss. And it was very enjoyable to come across in this ancient literature mention of it. There is also a discussion about, let's see if I can find this, the traditional dichotomy between talent and discipline. That's how it was phrased in here. And I believe that this author, Liu Xie, comes to the right conclusion, which is that both must go in tandem. One without the other is less serviceable than a combination. And in fact, it's not as though you have two separate things combining, but they become one thing ultimately. So I have just started. I am proceeding slowly. I have not finished this book by any means yet, so I do have two things going. I figured it would be good to read this while I still have Mark Edward Lewis going. This, as I say, predates the Tang Dynasty, but I am sure its repercussions were felt very much in the literary community of the Tang. And I don't know how much I'm going to refer to it, but if I need to, just by good chance, I have the Chinese text here. I think that is a simplified version of the character for dragon. I never learned the little shortcuts that are prevalent on the mainland, but for the most part, to the extent that I need it, I have the Chinese here. As I say, this is by and large above my head, but I also have a translation by somebody else. So as a second reference point, it may help me out. I've always loved literary criticism. I've talked about it on this channel often enough. And so I'm realizing this may well be, however, the last time I look at literary criticism, as I am involved in this process of improving my reading skills, I am coming across more and more topics or focal points of study where I realize that I may not need to return there anymore. In regards to the political situation and this channel in particular, as I go forth, I recently said that my loyalty lies with English literature and the English language. But I realized as I'm getting into this that only applies to the channel in this present milieu. If, say, I found myself banished from my homeland and had the chance to move to China, I could easily forsake English and the literature. My work as a poet has been done for the most part. I have not punched out on the time clock yet as a poet, but even when I was young, living in Taiwan, I knew that I could easily just forsake all of this. And in fact, there would be a breath of freedom in doing so, because one's own language carries a certain amount of baggage, which when one goes into a different tongue, you do not feel the press of in the same way. So that is where things stand, and we shall see where it takes me. I have not gotten into the text itself, but as I say, with this little background of history that I have recently put under my belt, already this is not leaving me with the sense of somebody lost at sea. I have a little bit of sense of where the ground is under my feet now, and I will report more on this book as I progress. I just wanted to share that little bit of an excerpt with you. Thank you very much for stopping by my channel.